and welcome to Rice Cordova Parent University, where we are going to talk to you about our writing process and how to get better weekend journals out of your third grade student. I'm Mrs. Rice.
And I'm Mrs. Cordova.
And the next journal entry for your children this coming month will be, What's My Worst Fear? So here's the process of what we do when we are in the classroom on Friday. The first thing we do is we will do a group brainstorm on fears, or whatever topic we are entering into. We will always do a group brainstorm. The kids would write down their top 2 or 3 fears, and then they would be made to choose what they know the most about, what a fear they are the most frightened of. After they have chosen it and circled it, they are going to continue to write information about their worst fear. So Mrs. Cordova has chosen mice, and she is writing why she cannot stand mice, and they make her very upset. This does not have to be in complete sentences, and this is all done at school. If your child is following along and paying attention, they should have at least a partial brainstorm already accomplished. Some kids have great amounts of ideas. Some kids have a couple. So you could look on your child's weekend journal for this brainstorm and either continue it with them or get the information from it. After we do the brainstorm, we will normally show an example, sometimes more than one example, of student work from previous years. So this particular child was scared of tornadoes. And then we'll talk about the example child's work. And the child was chosen as an example because the child did things well. We will be paying attention to beginning sentence, matching up with ending sentence. We will be paying attention to, does the child have good ideas and good vocabulary words, good word choices? And anytime you get a really good word choice, you get some fairy dust sprinkled on your paper. So we'll be talking about the student examples and giving them reasons to write an excellent story. The teachers many times will then give a quick example of how to write another good introduction and a closing with details in the middle. We focus on transition words like first, next, third, so, anything that gives order to your paper. And the teachers are really big on the bow that ties everything together. If your beginning ties in with your end. And if you mentioned scares and mice and tiny scary creatures, you need to mention scary mice somewhere in your ending. So it can be tied together with a bow, because that's what our friend Orgy tells us to do. Orgy tells the kids exactly what they need in any paragraph, or really any story. He is the organizational monster. And with his beginning, you need a grabber sentence that's going to grab the reader's attention and absolutely yank them into your story. You could start with a question, a challenge, a riddle, a quote, or a feeling to really kind of spice it up. So you have to tell the reader what you're talking about. Now, the body of the story is where we have all the good details and all the good word choices. So that's where you're going to put everything you wanted to say about your story topic. And finally, we have a conclusion, so the reader knows, oh, the story's come to an end. And usually, a good story is tied right back into the beginning. And whatever you mentioned at the beginning as your topic is mentioned again as a topic. And you can end with a question, a feeling, a comment, or something funny. And we always bring up Orgy because he knows exactly how to write a good paper. Now, in class, we're going to take it a little further than the weekend journal. We will do the same situation where everybody brainstorms. You know, this brainstorm was about, let's talk about 3 bugs we know a lot about. How could we share the information in our heads with someone about our favorite bugs or our least favorite bugs? Everybody brainstorms to get the information down so they have notes. then we use a graphic organizer called a Foursquare. I know it has more than 4 squares, but here's how it's organized. They have room for a title. They have room for a good beginning with more than one sentence. They have room to talk about what happened first, or in this case, the first bug they want to talk about, what happened second, or the second thing they want to talk about, what happened third, or the third thing they want to talk about, and a good ending, or an awesome ending that closes it together and ties it back in. Whatever you talked about in the beginning, you should mention again at the end. And this was about ladybugs, grasshoppers, and spiders, so we of course mentioned it in the end. You can make one of these Foursquares out of a piece of just recycled paper or notebook paper that your kid could write in, and that would make sure your child does have a good beginning, 2 sentences in each box, and a sentence or 2 at the end, giving for sure 8. Then they would have to recopy it into their weekend journal. Now, if you really want to get a good score on your weekend journal, you're going to have to talk to your child about adding in excellent word choices. Word choices that describe nouns: sharp teeth, ugly, beady eyes, tiny, fit into small holes, anything that helps us visualize this story. Now, the only way your child can get a 4 and a 4+ is if they find a way to put a simile or metaphor into their weekend journal. So that might be something you'd need to talk to them about. Instead of just saying their babies are ugly, as mice babies kind of are, you could say the mice babies are as ugly as a pile of mud. Or the mice babies are as ugly as half-chewed hot dogs. So you are giving them the simile. And the kids can usually come up with a simile, but it might take a little coaching from an adult. Now, if you are wanting to get your kid to write complete sentences, we have some hints. First, they shouldn't write directly into the notebook. They should be writing a rough draft someplace. And you are going to have to check it to make sure they have complete sentences. And I would set up a deal with them. For every complete sentence that your child writes, and it's got to be complete, you might have like a little gem or a little sticker or a polished rock or a seashell. You can get things pretty cheap at a craft store, little items, and they might just have a little container where they could put their little treasures in. Any little container where you could just put the little treasures that you just won with your complete sentences. You could also tell them you'll pay them a nickel for every complete sentence, and it has to be complete. And they could put that in a little bank, and eventually they would have enough money to buy something that they wanted with the nickels, and then you could use the nickels again the next time you were getting them to write complete sentences. You could even give out a few more little gems or little sparkles for excellent word choices, and that would be subjective. If they are putting in words like small holes and ugly mice and stinky mice, putting in the good word choices. If it's written out in this format, you can really see that they have sentences. And then if they don't have sentences, you can talk to them about how could this be a better sentence. So another question we had was run-ons. What do we do if my kid is making horrible run-on sentences? Well, you have to read through it without breathing and let them figure out where the breaks are. So if this didn't have the period there, I could read it. Okay, tell me where the break needs to be, because this is a run-on. Second, mice have beady eyes, and these eyes are like poisonous berries that make me want to run screaming. I really need to breathe. So where's the end of the first idea? Most kids are going to be able to find the end of the first idea and put the period in. What the weekend journal is about, it's not about the children writing a 5-paragraph paper, though it can be if kids decide they really like writing. This is about getting some practice brainstorming and thinking about writing and writing complete sentences, and thinking about transition words and excellent word choices. You are the way we can get every child some one-on-one help. Right now, it's about 1 on 22. So this is just taking it down a notch. We appreciate everything parents are doing to get the journals done at home. And we love it when kids write us a little picture or type it or put something special into it. So it's a time when you can work with your child as well. So I hope we have given you ideas for journal writing. This has been Mrs. Rice with her hoarse voice, and Mrs. Cordova.